Okay, another rainy day. They said there's actually a snowfall warning too. I don't think it's gonna snow anyways by the looks of it. And what did I read today? How about this first one? Was kind of interesting. There's often people who shoot down drones, for example, because they think it's spying on them and so forth. But how about this one, which was kind of interesting? Because in this case, the person did shoot down a drone. And in terms of the punishment, it sounds like that wasn't the actual reason why he got punished. This one says, Florida man sentenced to 4 years in federal prison after shooting down a drone. Although one thing to point out, this did sound like it was an official per se, basically using a drone too. It says here, in July 2021, Florida deputies arrested a man for shooting down their drone. Last week, a judge sentenced him to 4 years in federal prison, but not for destruction of property. He was sentenced merely for possession of a firearm as a felon. That's kind of interesting to think about. It says, according to a criminal complaint filed by an agent with the Department of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, deputies with the Lake County Sheriff's Office responded to reports of a possible burglary at a large commercial property in Mount Dora, Florida. Upon arrival, they found a front entry gate that had been damaged by impact, as well as unsecured doors on some of the buildings at the facility. Thinking there could still be intruders present on the 10-acre site, deputies flew an unmanned aerial vehicle over the property to check it out. As it flew, however, they heard 2 gunshots ring out and saw the drone slowly spinning downward and emitting smoke before it crashed onto the metal roof of an outbuilding, became suspended on a rain gutter, and caught fire. Deputies investigated the source of the gunshots and encountered Wendell Goney, who lived nearby. Goney first denied shooting the drone but admitted to it after learning the craft was equipped with cameras. Goney claimed this was the first time he had ever shot at a drone, but he told deputies that he had been, quote, harassed by people flying them over his property. He said he bought a .22 caliber rifle to put a stop to it and hadn't known that this particular drone belonged to law enforcement. I mean, either way, with how the regulations and stuff are, that's equivalent to shooting an aircraft, correct? Like a traditional manned aircraft, let's just say with passengers and all that. It says, when deputies asked, Goney admitted that he was a convicted felon and therefore ineligible to own a firearm under federal law. They arrested Goney, who gave them permission to search his house and told them exactly where to find the rifle. The criminal complaint noted that Goney has approximately 23 prior felony convictions. He has been sentenced to more than a year in a state prison on multiple occasions, including 1997, 2007, 2009, and 2013. While Goney was initially charged with both destruction of law enforcement property and possession of a firearm, prosecutors dropped the former charge in exchange for his plea, noting in their sentencing memo that the federal guidelines call for a recommended sentencing range from between 77 to 96 months. So that makes you think, in terms of things like those drone regulations, they don't seem to be as serious or to protect, let's just say, a drone operator as much versus punishing, let's just say, someone just flying in, I don't know, a controlled airspace or something like that, even if it's really safe or people freak out, for example, I guess like here, hey, you're spying on me, so they get, for example, assaulted because of things like paranoia and all that. It doesn't seem like a drone operator has as much, I guess, protection, or at the same time is not taken as seriously by the sounds of it here anyways, when it comes to punishing people. And then I was reading this, which covered with the topic of things like drone delivery. It's kind of interesting as it described in a particular area what is the #1 item that people are requesting. It says here, coffee is the #1 request for drone delivery in Dublin. A drone delivery company, which is announced as expanding its operations in Dublin, says coffee is the #1 thing it delivers. Despite the drone reaching speeds of up to 80 kilometers an hour, Bobby Healy, CEO of Mana Drone Delivery, insists we don't spill a drop. Mana is currently serving the Balbriggan area, and Mr. Healy said that of 170,000 flights completed so far, they had roughly 20 complaints. The company is now expanding operations to the Blanchardstown area, covering a population of over 100,000. The launch site is situated right beside the first commercial operation in partnership with Burrito Bar Boojum. Speaking about the reaction from customers receiving their food delivered by drone for the first time, Mr. Healy said it's complete mania. The whole street is usually out, all filming, and they're posting it on social media, with kids in particular going absolutely nuts for it, lighting up the whole street, he said. That actually makes me wonder if that's the reason more people are ordering things like coffee, because they just want to order anything, like to just say that's the cheapest item, to see this thing in action, to deliver something. It goes on saying, Mr. Healy said the amount of coffee delivered by Mana's a big surprise for most people. The coffee loses roughly 2 degrees in flight time, and most local coffee shops we work with just heat the coffee up in an extra few degrees to counteract this. The design in the coffee is still there. We don't spill a drop. And there's an interesting additional point here too, in terms of people complaining about things like the noise of drones and stuff like that. It says, if someone is particularly vocal about the noise or the drones, what we do is just mark that location and make sure never to fly over that home, he said. I don't know if that's practical in the long term, because you can literally have everyone in the entire area say, oh, we don't want this, whatever, flying in this direction or over our property and all that. But again, I guess that's kind of interesting in terms of what people are requesting anyways. And this was a fascinating story I read. Apparently there was a swimming competition of sort where somebody did really well, he won, broke some records and all that, but he was disqualified because of his celebration at the end, which is kind of interesting to think about. This one says, swimmer disqualified for celebrating spirit of the rule. NC State swimmer Kenneth Own Lloyd finished first in his men's 1,650-yard freestyle final in record time and climbed into teammates Ross Dance Lane to celebrate. After the race, however, referees announced Lloyd had been disqualified for switching lanes prior to the heat's end in violation of NCAA swimming's interference rule. So imagine that. Like it says here, I guess what the rule is, it says a swimmer who changes lanes during a heat shall be disqualified. So you can see basically in the video, the guy's swimming in a regular competition, like a race, he clearly wins and he's happy about it, so he's celebrating, but he actually, I guess, goes over the divider there before the whole thing is actually finished, and he's kind of celebrating with his teammate, I mean, according to this anyways. And because he crossed over before the event actually finished, that counts as a disqualification, I guess, really technically in terms of the rules. So you can see how, I guess, traumatized the guy was afterwards. Even the teammate, he was like, well, that's ridiculous, right? Like, that guy should win. It didn't interfere with anything. So it's one of those arguments, I guess, kind of like it implies here. Should it be one of those letter of the law versus spirit of the law types of situations? That's kind of crazy, isn't it? Now, a lot of people are giving the referees, for example, a lot of heat, saying they must be miserable people in their lives to make that kind of a call in this situation. But then some people argue, well, that's the rules and they're just doing their job and so forth. But what would you think in this case? It's kind of crazy, again, just based on the situation.
All right, see you guys later.